Crane is the Chris Hubbard of three-point play.
Crane likes to fly. Yeah, exactly.
305.
Or the Greg Robinson.
Hello and welcome to Three-Point Play. Ben Axelrod, Jay Crawford coming to you live from WKYC Studios. Channel 3, Three-Point Play, 3 topics of the day.
We have 3 good ones today, too.
We do, yeah.
I think. I feel we do.
And as you would imagine, we're pretty Browns-focused. So
yeah.
I don't know about you. I have the Bleacher Report app.
Yep.
I like the push alerts. I used to work for Bleacher Report. I think they're on top of it.
They do a good job.
Yeah, and I get out of the gym this morning, and I have a push alert that starts with Ian Rappaport reporting on the Cleveland Browns, which usually means a trade, a cut, a signing, a firing, usually a firing.
It's usually true,
right.
whatever he reports. I mean,
yeah, between him and Schefter, those are kind of like the two.
I agree.
They're the Wojs of the
They're
NFL.
the go-to. Yeah, absolutely.
You just kind of run with it. So this one, though, wasn't a transaction. It was instead about body composition, and I'll read you this tweet. An important focus for the Browns heading into 2020, QB Baker Mayfield's fitness and body makeup. From what I understand, he put on some weight last year to bulk up and lost some quickness. His plan is to be slimmer and faster this year with an emphasis on being in better shape.
Yeah. I think that's needed.
Yeah.
We watched him last year. We saw him. I'm not really one to body shame. I'm not one to necessarily talk about a player's physical composition unless it's an extreme one way or another. Like if you see a guy that's just added 30 pounds of muscle and he's shredded,
right?
I automatically am like, what's going on? I just red flags everywhere. And also the other way, when a player who's young and has generally been fit throughout his career, and you start noticing that he's just a little bit slower, he's a little bit thicker, but not in a good way.
Yeah.
Then I start to get concerned, and I was definitely there last year with Baker, and I think Baker's there too. Baker, if Rappaport's reporting this, he got it from either Baker or someone very close to Baker, and he's confident that it's true.
Yeah, or the team. And like with NBA players, though, like Giannis comes in totally yoked.
Yeah.
Like you can tell he's been working out. LeBron, I remember when he made that big jump, I think around 2007, it's like, okay, this guy's body has changed. In football, though, with just the way they wear uniforms, especially at the quarterback position, I mean, Baker usually wears long sleeves. He's always been like a little bit of a thicker dude.
Yeah.
But you could just not even, I know there was this meme like Fat Baker, and it was kind of tongue-in-cheek, but he wasn't as quick as he was.
Yeah, that's where I first noticed it. Even before I looked at his body, I remember being at training camp last year and just watching drills and watching, you can tell when a guy kicks it to his high gear. You can just tell. Everything gets more urgent. And it was, I can't remember the particular play, but there was nothing there and he was scrambling out of the pocket. It was at training camp.
Yeah.
And the last couple of steps to get out of bounds and to avoid the defender, he kicked it into high gear, but he never got there. And I thought, oh, wow, that's odd. Like, I remember him being quicker last year. And then the games came. And there were times where he couldn't get out of pockets, where he was being tracked down by linemen that he should be able to outrun. And I immediately thought, he's definitely lost a step. Then I started concentrating on his body makeup and how he looked. And I started noticing he was thicker in an area where you don't want to be thicker. And, this is an interesting push and pull because in Baker's case, because he's not this huge Ben Roethlisberger type, you want to bulk up. You want to be as thick and as sturdy as you can because you're going to take a lot of hits over the course of 16 games. I think the intention going into last season was to get thicker, bigger, stronger. And he may have achieved that at some point in the season, but I feel like as the season progressed, that bigger, thicker, stronger came to bigger, softer, slower, which is bad. And so I think he has to find a happy medium between too light where he can't hold up, but big enough where he can still evade the rush and add an extra second or two to those plays that turn into big plays, and not being too big where he can't get away, but not too small where he can't stay healthy.
Yeah, and he's never been Michael Vick or even Johnny Manziel in terms of speed, but he's always had kind of that elusiveness, that escapability to get away. We saw that at Oklahoma, and I do wonder if it's one of those things where at Oklahoma, because you are playing against not only college players, but in his case, Big 12 defenses.
Yeah, I know, that's always troublesome.
Right. Maybe it was a little, I mean, it definitely was easier for him to get away there. And then we saw him nicked up during his rookie season. I remember especially early in the season, around the time Hugh Jackson got fired and heading into that bye week, like he was getting really nicked up and we weren't sure how healthy he was. I know that was the case last year, but maybe there is something to this idea that he wanted to bulk up because he saw that was something that was holding him back in his rookie year, and he either didn't do it the right way, didn't maintain it the right way.
I think he did, yeah. I think that's probably the latter.
And he's 24, 25. That's when the metabolism starts to change a little bit.
It is, but it's still too young to start looking
totally,
soft.
Completely, especially for an NFL quarterback.
When he's paid millions.
Right.
To keep in shape. Here's the thing with Baker. I've always said the biggest year for a young quarterback is year 2 to 3. Mm-hmm. Your first year, and we saw this with RG3, we've seen this with a lot of quarterbacks. Right. They come in and the league isn't quite used to what they're doing. And so they need a standing 8 count. And then they figure out a game plan. Oh, okay, you like to do this. We're going to shift our defenses to take that away. Mm-hmm. Now it's like in baseball. Okay, you've proven you can hit the fastball. Can you hit the off-speed stuff? So year 1 to 2 is always interesting to watch, especially in Baker's case, because remember, he set a rookie touchdown record in his rookie season.
In 14 games.
And didn't start the whole season, right. So everybody, I think, expected Baker to at least maintain that plateau and perhaps build on that. Mm-hmm. Well, he didn't. He took a serious step back. Throughout it, his character was questioned. I think this is a work ethic issue. I think his work ethic is being questioned. One thing we know about Baker Mayfield is when you count him out, you light the internal fire. That fire's been lit. Mm-hmm. He took a lot of criticism in year 2. He's taken a lot of criticism here in the offseason. Let's hope that Baker is regrouping this offseason and trying to find whatever it was that drove him to the success as a walk-on quarterback, to win a Heisman Trophy, to become the #1 overall draft pick, to become the record-setting quarterback for touchdown throws as a rookie. So let's hope he can find that again, because year 3 will define his future.
Totally agree.
I mean, if he breaks out and has another year similar to his rookie season with fewer interceptions and just leads the team to a winning record, I think that the sustainability of Baker as a quarterback in the NFL, 2 thumbs up. If he plays as poorly as he did last year, I don't know what happens to Baker Mayfield. I don't know if he becomes a career backup. I don't know what his future is here in Cleveland. Is he still looked at as the franchise guy? If he has 2 straight years like the one he had last year, I don't know that he's our guy.
I mean, I think if he plays as poorly as he did last year, if the turnovers are there, if just the lack of accuracy, which was jarring because he's always been a very accurate quarterback.
Yeah.
Then you're probably looking at a position where the Browns are going to be picking pretty highly in the NFL draft. The NFL draft in Cleveland. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. It's a quarterback-heavy draft already. Looking ahead to 2021. I think this is kind of like this is the line in the sand. This is where are you still our franchise quarterback, or do we have a problem on our hands as far as how we address the quarterback position moving forward?
Ben, here's what I hate about that is he's going to be working under his 4th head coach in 3 years. That's horrible. I mean, that's a way to wreck a young quarterback. So he's got to learn a new offense. He's got to find his way in this new offense. I have a hard time believing that it was all Freddie Kitchens and the offense last year, what we saw with Baker. I just do, because to your point on the accuracy, like those throws were being completed in year 1.
Right.
They were being intercepted or wild misses.
How many wow throws did he make last year? I mean, his rookie year, I
think it was double-digit
multiple
percentage.
Times a game.
It seemed like 10, 15% of his throws were just nowhere near where they needed to be.
Right.
And he's got great receivers. If you put it in the vicinity, many of these guys are going to go get it. At least Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. But I think that this is the make or break season for Baker Mayfield. Is he the franchise guy moving forward? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
I think we're going to find out. I think, again, the handicap working against him is the fact that he's going to have his 4th head coach as he starts what will be his 2nd full season as quarterback. I mean, you got to look long and hard to find a #1 draft pick at quarterback that will be on his 4th head coach by the time he starts his 2nd full season in the NFL.
It's pretty much only Browns quarterbacks and Cavs point guards who have to deal with that sort of
That's a great point.
instability, it seems like.
It's nuts.
Moving on to our second topic, though, we were talking on Monday, giving out our letter grade for the Browns and how you just can't give them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's true. I mean, this franchise has done nothing to earn the benefit
Right.
of the doubt. But I was watching Andrew Berry's press conference at the NFL Scouting Combine yesterday. I know you were too. You were tweeting about it.
I like him.
It's hard not to get sucked in. It's
Yeah,
hard not to see
I
how
know.
this thing could work and how he's a guy who, feels qualified. And it's not even just saying the right things, because he really didn't say a whole bunch of anything, but almost just the way he carries himself.
That's what I was going to say. It's just he's a grown up.
Yeah.
And he's 32 years old.
Right,
He's the
right.
youngest GM in the league. Yet when you watch him, you feel like this is a grown up. And I don't want to disparage John Dorsey or any of the other GMs that we've had in the past, but there's always been a sense of a used car salesman in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. But when I watch Andrew Berry, I feel like I'm watching someone who's very thoughtful, who's giving deep consideration to everything before he says it.
Exactly.
And I wasn't always sure that was the case the last couple of GMs. Look, we've been burned so many times. I'm not going to sit here and give a wholesale endorsement to a guy that I know very little about.
Right.
What I'll say is what I know about him, his background, his education, the way he's climbed through the ranks at a very fast pace in the NFL, and everything I've heard and seen from him so far, I'm all in on. That doesn't mean that I'm going to sit here and say he's going to turn the Browns around. He's the answer. But from what I've seen so far, I feel pretty good, and I feel like we just have to wait and see. Let's let him go through a full draft, a full free agent period, a full season to see what kind of moves he makes along the way, and then we'll sit here and judge him a year from now and figure out if he's got us pointed in the right direction or not.
I think what was interesting, too, is he's not up there trying to put quotes on a sweatshirt. He's not up there trying to win the press conference. He's interacting with these reporters like they're adults, like he's an adult.
Right.
And that's not something we see out of general managers and head coaches all the time here in Cleveland. I think that, when he does that, and again, we're on the media side of things, so maybe we read too much into these things, but I've always thought the way that a player, the way that an executive, a way that a coach deals with the media is kind of a window into, because it's something they probably don't want to be doing, but it's how do they handle that responsibility. And I thought, as far as just, addressing the questions without embarrassing the franchise, which again is a low bar to clear, but it's something that hasn't always happened.
That's where we are, though.
Right. I thought he aced it in terms of that.
We'll see.
He talked about a number of players, though, and a lot of free agents. So let's do a little buy or sell.
Sure. Okay.
Joe Schobert.
I'm a buy on Joe. I don't think he fit what John wanted out of that position. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that the way the Browns were going with their scheme defensively was the best way to go about it. I think what they wanted, they came in and said, this is the defense that we want to play. They didn't have the personnel to play that defense. So they're trying to fit Joe Schobert in a peg that he just didn't fit in. Mm-hmm. If Joe doesn't sign here in Cleveland, he's going to get a nice contract with someone, and he's going to be a Pro Bowl caliber linebacker. He's around the ball, and that's what you want your linebacker to do.
I think it's going to be a matter of dollars and cents here.
I agree.
Because some of those flow charts as far as what the analytics guys value position from a position standpoint, middle linebacker typically isn't one of those positions that they like to invest in. And I think they would like to keep him, though, because I don't think they want to go into this season with a self-inflicted hole in the middle of your defense.
Not when you have others to plug.
Right. That's a linebacking core that's already pretty shaky, and Joe's been the one constant over the course of the last 3 years or so. But it sounds like they're going to meet with him, but it sounds like he's probably going to wind up testing the market.
And he should. I think, when you put together the body of work that he's put together, I think he should go out and see what he's worth. Mm-hmm. And the Browns will make the decision based on what kind of offer he gets as to whether or not he fits into their future plans. I'm just saying from a personal standpoint, the kind of player he is. Yeah. I also believe that one of the things that you're hearing from Andrew Berry is you're constructing a team. You're not gathering and collecting talent. That's clearly what happened here under John Dorsey. Who needs a left tackle? We're going to go out and get another game-breaking wide receiver. Well, here's the problem. If your left tackle doesn't give your quarterback time to throw the ball to your game-breaking wide receivers, none of it matters. And we as the media, I think we took the bait on that when they said, we're going to figure out the left tackle. And then we watched Greg Robinson, and we thought, no, they're not going to figure out left tackle. And honestly, I think it's the second most important position on your football team. And he's the protector of the quarterback. That left tackle is vital. And it's a shame that Joe Thomas wasn't born 10 years later, because I'd love to see what this Browns team could have been 2 years ago with Joe Thomas still playing at a Pro Bowl caliber level.
Yeah, it's pretty cruel in those regards. But that is actually, we'll talk about left tackles here in a minute with the NFL draft, but that is one of those positions that, again, the analytics guys put a premium on. So we'll see how they address that. Tight end David Njoku.
I think it might be time to punt.
I'd like to buy on him.
You'd like to buy?
I'd like to buy low. You're buying low here. If we're looking at these like stocks,
He has driven the price down. I think that he's probably
5 catches last year in 4 games.
And the doghouse thing, like I want to know internally, was that more a Freddie thing or was that more an Njoku thing?
Right.
And we get excited when we look at Njoku's physique and we look at his skill set. It's hard not to be excited about the guy. But one of the primary functions of a tight end is to be able to catch the football. And time again, we've seen him make difficult catches, but too often he's dropping balls that are right on his numbers that he needs to catch.
Yeah, the production's not there. I just think
not there.
At this point, he's heading into the 4th year of his career. You have an option on him, which they have to make a decision on by May 3rd, I think, for his 5th year, and that's a pretty hefty number as a former first-round pick. So
I would definitely stay away from that.
Yeah, I'd probably decline the option.
I
but
would too.
At that point, then maybe you do have to trade him. But I'm just intrigued. He's so talented.
He is.
But the production's not there.
Look, he may be one of those guys that gets dealt to the Bengals and has 5 Pro Bowl seasons in a row. But for whatever reason, he hasn't clicked here so far. And last year is a real head-scratcher to me. I don't have enough information as to exactly what was going on. I just know that he was in Freddie's doghouse, and he couldn't get out. And when you're Freddie, maybe he was blindsided by the fact he only got a year, and maybe if he knew he was only going to get a year, he might have done things differently and played some of these guys that he decided to sit. But if you know this guy's going to help your team, he's going to be on the field. Something big happened there, and I want character guys. I love that Andrew Berry said he's going to try to get to know the players on a personal level. I think that's hugely important.
Yeah.
I also think before you draft a guy, Greg Robinson is a cautionary tale. We all were enamored by his skill set coming out of Auburn.
Yep, number 2 pick.
And we all thought this guy's a can't miss at a position that you can draft and then forget about for a decade. But there's nothing there. There's no heart. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And now we might know why there was nothing there.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is, for me, like before you draft a guy, you need to dive into his psyche and his personnel, and you need to just absolutely make sure this is the kind of guy you want to bring into your fold for the next decade. Because when you draft a guy, that should be the thought.
Along those lines, running back Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
Restricted free agent. They said they're going to tender him, which
I was a little surprised by that too.
That paves a path for him to either return, sign elsewhere,
Right.
Maybe trade him still, but definitely in play that he'll be back here for at least one more year.
Right.
I'm surprised with this one, too. I think this is a sell. I'm surprised the Browns aren't selling.
Yeah, I would, if I had to, I would put him as a sell too, only because since he's been here, there's been an issue. And I just don't think that this organization has been burned too many times by that specific issue at skills position players, guys that derailed their own careers.
Well, I'm thinking of Josh Gordon when you say that.
Josh Gordon's the first, and Callaway's the next guy.
Good
Callaway's a guy that you're just like, you came in with 2 strikes.
Right. And the problem with those two is when you see that report, failed drug test, arrest, when you see whatever you see, you're never surprised. And Kareem Hunt, for me, has reached that point where you're not surprised with whatever happened in Rocky River. And, it might have just been a little weed in his car or whatever. He's not the kind of player who can afford to have a little weed in his car right now.
And that's the point. Like, okay, so I take out of the fact, like, because I've had this discussion with other sports fans, and they're like, come on, it's a little weed. I get that.
Yeah.
I get it's a little weed. But here's the problem. A little weed is illegal. And as long as it's illegal, and as long as you've already had an issue with NFL discipline,
Right.
It's like the Callaway thing. Dude, your future is in your hands. Do you want to make 7 figures a year playing in the NFL and perhaps get a long-term deal in the 8 figures? Or do you want to be relegated to the XFL and hope that a team is willing to take yet another chance on you? And he knew he was in trouble coming in, and before he ever put on a Browns uniform, cops found pot in his car.
Right.
Like, whether it's legal or not, I'm not here to debate that. The fact of the matter is, it is illegal. And he was already in the NFL's program. So the fact that he's doing that, to me, it isn't a drug problem, it's an IQ problem. If you cannot handle the simple fact that weed is illegal in the NFL, to me, that's an IQ issue.
And you're the backup running back. Nick Chubb is on this roster still. Like Kareem Hunt, to me, he's just not worth the headache. Like
I don't think he
at
is
a certain
either.
point, that's what it comes down to. Is Josh Gordon back in 2013 and back in 2014? You thought he was worth the headache. Then as it progressed, it got to the point where okay, this guy's not even going to get back on the field for us. Let's cut losses. Kareem Hunt just not worth the headache. Like you're fine at running back.
I agree.
Upgrade the Dontrell Hilliard spot and let's roll.
Yeah.
Last one here. Oh, we've got a couple more actually, but Odell Beckham Jr.
Well, unfortunately, I think we're stuck with him because right now I think his stock is as low as it's been in his NFL career. So what do you do?
This would be a sell low situation if you're selling.
And I never want to sell low. I never want to do that. So I, as much as I hate to say this, because it's kind of counterintuitive to what I've talked about with Hunt, because Hunt's a guy who was the NFL's leading rusher. Beckham's a guy who can lead the NFL in receiving. So they're kind of very similar in one facet. With him, it's not a matter of do we pick up an option year or do we want to reinvest in this guy. We're invested in him. And if we were to trade him, we're not going to get what we should get for him.
Right.
And so then it makes the whole thing look like a huge mistake in the first place. And I know it's easier for the regime that's in place now to do that because they didn't make the original sin. But, you just want to hope that the offense and the scheme and the lack of an offensive line were so bad that Odell Beckham didn't get a fair shake to show what he can do, and the injury. So I want to roll the dice again on OBJ. Unless someone comes forward with a trade that you just can't refuse. And it sounds like Andrew Berry's listening on everything. He says he's open to moving up or down in the draft, which I think if the general manager says he's not, I'm worried about that. I give him another shot.
Yeah, I think it is one of those things. I think the storyline nobody's really talking about with the Browns is they're paying two guys like their number one receivers, and that's not something
you can't sustain that.
You can't. Well, especially with a guy as seemingly cap savvy as Andrew Berry, like that's not a position where you're going to be investing as much. I mean, they have two of the top 8 paid wide receivers, I think, on an annual basis. I don't think it would hurt to hope that you can get his value back up and then trade him. I think that's in play.
So you mean give him the start of next season?
Yeah, because he's still under contract for like three more years.
3 years, yeah. Now here's the thing, like
maybe 4.
If you start next season and through 6 games he has 5 touchdowns and 450 yards receiving, and he's clearly an impact guy in your offense. Well, if you raise his value to a certain level, at some point I'm like, well, hold on,
right?
Let's
keep
him
push and pull
in an orange helmet, but. I think we're stuck with him. I think that's just the reality of it. I think that we have to hope like crazy that he becomes the old OBJ next year. I'm really anxious to see what kind of offense Kevin Stefanski puts out there. I have a feeling it's going to be more run first.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I always like to establish. Freddie always used to say, we got to establish the run, we got to establish the run. And then you'd see the play chart after the game, you'd be like, wow, we threw 6 out of the first 7 plays.
Right.
And we were 3 and out, 4 and out. That's not establishing the run.
Yeah.
I hope Stefanski sticks to his guns and sticks to his philosophy and tries to build on the fact that you've got the best running back in the NFL, and I think we do, and make this team a run team that defenses can't figure out how to stop. Do we load up against the run and get beat deep, or how do we attack this Browns offense?
Yeah, I just think this is such a critical year too for OBJ in terms of showing that he is worth the headache, because he is a headache. I mean, we saw that in New Orleans during the national title game, and again, it's not a matter of what was he doing? Who cares if he's committing NCAA violations? That's not a Browns matter.
I had a bigger problem with the cop in the locker room.
Yeah, that was not a good look.
I mean, that's just that's an overall lack of authority. And it was almost like he was playing down to the young kids, like, hey, look at me. You're supposed to be the adult in the room. You're handing out cash, and you're disrespecting law enforcement, and it's not a good look.
That whole night was not a good look for Odell.
No, I don't know what was worse, the handing out of the money, putting future NFL players' careers in jeopardy.
Yeah.
At least their status as an NCAA player, or the disrespecting of law enforcement. But it wasn't a good look. I'm going to chalk it up to a temporary blast of insanity.
Yeah.
And hope that he just can become a productive player and a positive member of that locker room and a true leader, because so far he hasn't done that.
Well, and in terms of, like, not even taking legal matters into it, but the come get me stuff, like, that's a distraction. And that OBJ, just, he's like LeBron, like, he's a planet to himself. Like, he is just, he's his own world. And when
we put up with that stuff from LeBron, and ultimately you got a ring out.
Because you knew you were going to be playing in June every year.
Every year.
He has to prove he's worth the headache.
Yeah,
That's the
because
thing.
I think in his mind he is the LeBron of the NFL.
Completely.
But when you look at the bottom line of what he's delivered in terms of team hardware, it's not there.
Yeah. I mean, I write so much about Odell, and we talk so much about him. And it got to a point last year where you look at his numbers, and it's like, why are we still talking about, like, why are we leading the show with this guy?
You know what? If you went right now and did a word count on how many stories, what the word count was on the stories that you were writing about OBJ off the field, it would be more than you talked about him on the field.
Oh, totally.
And that, if that ratio is out of whack,
that's a good point.
You're a problem.
Yeah.
So I'd under normal circumstances, I'd say test the market, see what you can get. If you can get a haul for him, and by haul I mean a stalwart left tackle, but nobody's in the business of giving those up because no one has two.
Right. And they don't let him go when they do.
When you get one, you hold on to them with everything you can. So I'm hoping that I'm also concerned about addressing the line through the draft. I read.
So let's get there. This is our third topic.
Yeah. This is an interesting topic, I think. I read something that talked about there's a real problem right now in the NFL when it comes to linemen. Mm-hmm. There is a real shortage of them. And the article that I read draws it back to the changes in the college game. The college game is not producing the 330-pound pass block, run block, prototypical NFL tight end or left tackles, or even linemen in that case, because the offenses in college football are so dissimilar than the NFL's. They're breeding and training and molding these guys to be what the college game needs. And because they're excelling at the college level, the pros are trying to transform that success in college to the NFL. It's a different game.
Yeah.
And we're finding, like the Corbett miss. First of all, I was shocked that we took him in the first place.
A lot of people were.
I want my linemen coming from the SEC or the Big Ten. Not to say that they can't come from other conferences, but I want them blocking guys that are going to play in the NFL their 4 years in college. And when you're at Ohio State, you're seeing guys like the Watts and different pass rushers that are going to play on Sunday. When you draft a guy from a smaller conference, he might be manhandling the competition, but maybe one out of every 15 guys he goes against might even be looked at by an NFL team. The college game is producing a different style of lineman than the NFL demands. And because of that, I'm not so sure the Browns shouldn't address the line through free agency.
So here's the problem, I think, is teams don't let good linemen go.
We just talked about that. You're going to have to overpay for them.
There's a long track record. Who's the guy? Nate Solder, who the Bears signed, I think, from the Patriots.
Well, there's others, too.
Yeah.
But I know where you're going.
Giants.
Finish your point.
Yeah, it's a high bust rate as far as paying a lot of money for free agent
because they're likely
offensive
28
tackles.
or 29 by the time you get your hands on them.
Now, on the flip side, there is an interesting one out there who's been linked to the Browns. It's Jack Conklin from the Titans.
Okay.
The Browns actually had the chance to draft him in the 2016 draft and traded the pick to the Titans. It was when they traded down from 2 to 8 to take Corey Coleman at 15. Jack Conklin is a free agent. The only reason he's a free agent, he's coming off, I think, an all-pro year. And the reason he is available is we were talking about that fifth-year option earlier. The Titans turned his down because he was injury prone.
Oh, wow.
And so he was all-pro his rookie year, had an injury-filled second and third year. The Titans declined his option. He came back, had an all-pro caliber year this past year, and now he's out on the open market.
Yeah.
He's more of a right tackle, though, than he is a left tackle. But the Browns need a right tackle.
They need everything.
And
I mean, they've got Bitonio, and outside of that, I don't know that you've got a whole lot to build on.
Yeah.
I really
People
don't.
like J.C. Treader, but I think he's solid, not spectacular.
He looks great compared to the other guys.
And he's a center.
And I know. So I don't know.
The thing is, they need two tackles. They need a left tackle and a right tackle.
And a right tackle. They need another guard. If you can upgrade at center, I would. That's always dicey, but I'm telling you, when I look back at what happened with the Browns last year, I know there were a lot of internal problems, but I am a firm believer that the offensive line is the engine of your football team. And I think if you want to look at success in the NFL, I look at a couple stats that aren't ones that most people look at. I look at plus minus.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the most undersold, underappreciated stat in all of sports, because when you look at the end of the year at the leaders in takeaway giveaway,
It doesn't lie.
they're all playoff teams.
Right.
And usually the team that does it best is in the Super Bowl. The other things that I like to look at is the number of sacks your team piles up versus the number of sacks your team allows.
Mm-hmm.
The offensive and defensive lines are the engines of your football team. I can't believe how our defensive line underperformed last year. I don't know what that was about, but it clearly underperformed. But the offensive line probably played up to or down to our standards coming into the season.
Yeah.
If that offensive line is still a question mark coming into next year, we're going to win 5 games.
Yeah, it can't be. I mean,
It's got to
it
be
has to
markedly
improve.
better.
And I did think there was a world, because Greg Robinson, he wasn't great, but I did think he's still a piece you could kind of piece together an offensive line with, maybe move from the right tackle. That's out the window. He's
done.
Not going to be, he might be starring in a remake of The Longest Yard.
Yeah, I think his career's over.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, if you could sign a Jack Conklin or some sort of free agent right tackle.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by the kid from Iowa, Tristan
Wirfs. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
Number 10, the Browns have the number 10 pick in the draft. Today's lineman day at the scouting combine. This seems like O-line or bust. Like, it seems like they're going to be taking an offensive lineman.
If he's still there at 10.
Well, so here are the names. Andrew Thomas from Georgia.
Right.
Mekhi Becton from Louisville. Jedrick Wills from Alabama. Tristan Wirfs from Iowa.
Who's ranked number 1? Who's the consensus top
There
guy
is
from
none.
there?
That's the thing, is
Yeah.
all these
Jackson
guys.
from SC, I know, is highly
Yeah,
favored.
Austin Jackson from USC. You look at mock drafts, whether it's Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, Matt Miller from Bleacher Report, like, all of them have the Browns taking an offensive tackle, and they all have the Browns taking a different offensive tackle.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So it's I'm not going to be breaking down.
Did you see any of Wirf's interview today?
I didn't, no.
So some of the comments that stood out to me, he said his mom has worked at, I think, Walmart or Target for 28 years. She started when she was 16. He was asked about his work ethic, like, where do you get it? He said, I get it from my mom. My mom's been at Target for 28 years. She started when she was 16. So here's what that tells me. What that tells me is his mom took a real sense of pride in the job that she had, regardless of what kind of job it was. She took pride in it. You're not at a company, for any company, for 28 years by accident. You're a good employee if you're there that long, and the companies recognize that.
Right.
And you're a hard worker. The other thing was, I love this comment. He was asked if he wanted to be the first offensive lineman taken, and he didn't shy away from that at all. He said,
embraced it.
Of course I do. Number 2 is the first loser. And I know
You're not
that-
first, you're last.
Yeah, and that's what it reminded me of, was Talladega Nights. But honestly, for me, I want a kid. I talked about personality and makeup. I want a kid that strives to be the best. Doesn't just talk it, but lives it. Can you give me 7 Nick Chubbs? And I don't mean talent. I just mean makeup. Like the work ethic, the drive to be the best, the talk a very little bit and let your game do all this talking for you. I love players like that. I think Cleveland loves players like that.
Oh, totally.
I think Nick Chubb has the chance to go down as the second or third best linebacker or running back in Brown's history. And when you look at him, I mean, between Brown and Leroy Kelly and Mack and Bynum, we've had some great running backs. But this kid, if he stays healthy, with his attitude and his skill set, has the chance to be as good as any of them.
Yeah, he's just got to stay healthy. I worry about that running style. I worry about his power, but if you're not getting caught, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. You know what I would do? This is unorthodox. I would have Nick Chubb interview all of the guys that the Browns put into their basket of possibles. I would have Nick Chubb meet all of them. And if Nick says this is a good guy, I would put 2 stars next to his name.
I think he would.
Well, I'm sure he would love to run
Andrew
behind
Thomas blocked for him at Georgia, so
I'm
I
sure
think
he'd love
that might kind of skew things.
And he's probably speaking well on his behalf.
He did, yeah.
But we need quality Pro Bowl caliber offensive linemen if we're going to make the next step to the playoffs.
So Andrew Thomas, Georgia, that fits your SEC criteria.
Yep, I like that a lot.
Mekhi Becton, Louisville, not so much. Jedrick Wills from Alabama. And Alabama's kind of had a shaky track record, but
they have, surprisingly.
But they produce so much, it's kind of a numbers game.
Yeah, that's true. But now, I like their defensive linemen a lot.
Yeah.
He's going against some of the best defensive linemen every day in practice. I think that probably helps him out a lot.
And then Tristan Wirfs, you mentioned the Big Ten, Iowa, maybe behind Ohio State. One of the best track records as far as producing offensive linemen.
I've only started reading a lot about this kid in the last week or so. But everything I've read,
it sounds like you have your draft crush.
He's totally my draft.
Yeah.
Listen, when a guy talks about he got his mom from his work ethic from his mom, who's worked 28 years.
Game over.
I'm in on this kid. I'm in on this guy. Yeah. So now look, I don't have a stopwatch in my hand. I'm not going to interview him. I'm
not breaking down O-line film. I'm just
I won't either. And honestly, Jackson stood out to me because he was a guy that I watched SC a couple of times last year, and I just remember thinking, for a team that really wasn't absolutely dripping with talent like USC is, he was a kid that jumped off the screen as a guy that, just his size and his footwork. I'm like, this guy's going to clearly be a star at the next level. So he's a guy that I remembered. I remember Wirfs because of the Ohio State, watching him play against Ohio State and being a handful for our defensive linemen. But I think that's where we got to put all of our focus and energy in this coming draft.
Is there any, because the draft gets kind of weird with how many quarterbacks go in the top 10, and that could push players down to the Browns.
Sure.
Like if a stud like an Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker from Clemson, or Jeff Okudah from Ohio State, is there a world where you walk away from the draft okay with the Browns taking a player other than an offensive
Most
tackle?
years, yes, not this year. Yeah. It's just such a glaring weakness, Ben.
It's such a glaring weakness, and the players are there. The draft prospects are there. It's just, it's a marriage.
What I don't want to see, and I know that they're going to be open to all options, I hope that the Browns don't draft down. Just for the message that
I can't do that again.
I know I don't want to do that again, and I think it sends the wrong message to fans. So, in other words, let's just say they want Wirfs or they want Jackson, and they're off the board at 8, and they're not in love with the next guy that's there at 10, but they want to go offensive lineman, so they say, well, we can drop down to 17 and pick up a third rounder. Don't do that. I don't want to collect these draft picks like we've done before because they don't always pan out.
Well, it's one of those things where you look at the Browns' record since 1999 and how did you get yourself in this hole? The NFL legislates equality through the draft.
More than any other league.
Right. The bad teams pick first. There's no lottery. You're the worst team in the league. You get the first pick. The Browns from 2015 through 2018, I guess, 2018 when they picked Baker, have always been in the top 5. And more years than not, they're trading out of those picks. I mean, trading down from 2 in 2016, trading down.
I just don't want to do that anymore.
The pick that could have been Julio Jones to the Falcons. You can't pass on this blue chip talent and then ask, why is my roster lacking blue chip talent?
Right, yeah.
So I'm very passionate about this. I do not like trading down.
I don't either. And I know that that's always a possibility. And
I know what the charts say and the draft value and Jimmy Johnson's thing and all that.
We've proven that can be. Right. That can be, if you don't pick smartly.
It's assuming you hit on the picks.
And you don't always. And obviously, the later the pick, the less likelihood that player is going to make Pro Bowls.
Yeah.
That's just the analytics of it.
Yeah.
So if you have a 10, it's not a 3, it's not a 2, it's not a slam dunk. Greg Robinson was a 2, right? And everybody thought he was a slam dunk. And the guy's sitting in a jail cell right now, facing 20 years in prison.
Yeah.
So the thing of it is, you can't say for sure, but every time you go from 10 to 17, you lessen the likelihood that you're going to get somebody that's going to change your life.
Completely agree.
So just take the picks where they sit, build an offensive line, and more than anything, this is my favorite thing Andrew Berry has said so far, he is into assembling a team, to building a team that's strong in all areas and has no major or glaring weaknesses. The fact that we have 2 of the top 8 wide receivers but none of the top 50 offensive linemen, that's an issue.
Yeah.
That's like a baseball player or a baseball team that has 2 Cy Young Award winners, but they don't have a guy that can hit 250.
Right.
And they don't have a home run hitter that's going to hit 20 home runs. What good does it do?
Right.
You got to be strong on every position.
Especially in a salary cap sport.
Especially in a salary cap sport. Right.
Exactly.
In baseball, you can buy your way out of that problem. In the NFL, you can't. You have limits on what you can do. And I'm not nuts that we have so much money allocated to one position, particularly when the group that's responsible for that position being productive is so weak.
Right.
You know, it's
And-
not
and
a
that-
chicken or an egg scenario.
That to bring this full circle, that's what loses you a Joe Schobert. That's what creates more holes across your roster because
Essentially.
it's all mismatched.
Yep,
So
you're right.
All right, we're running long here, but no shortage of topics with the Cleveland Browns. And
talk forever about
We'll
the
be
Browns.
discussing this all through the spring. But thank you for joining us on today's episode of 3 Point Play. For Jay Crawford, I'm Ben Axelrod. Thanks for watching.